Everyone called her insane, not quietly, not secretly. They shouted it in the streets, on television, in council chambers and classrooms. Her name was Evelyn Mare, once a respected marine engineer, once the youngest project leader at Pacific Corps. But that was before she started speaking, before she warned them, before she told them the seas would rise, not in decades, not in centuries. Now, no one listened. When she protested official projections, they revoked her credentials. When she leaked the suppressed data, they arrested her. When she returned to her childhood home by the sea, they called it exile. She called it freedom. And beneath the endless gray waters of the Pacific Trench, she began to build. Not a lab, not a bunker, a city, a last refuge, a place no one knew about, a place no one believed would ever be needed. But Evelyn knew. The collapse wasn't coming, it had begun. And when the oceans swallowed the world, the people who hated her would remember the name they cursed. Mare, the woman of the sea. Her work began in silence. She repurposed old offshore platforms, purchasing them under fabricated corporations. Using forgotten supply chains, she acquired materials, pressure-resistant alloys, carbon nanotube mesh, deep-sea filtration systems. Untraceable, illegal. Every bolt she welded, every circuit she wired, was done with one purpose. Survival. She called it Calum. Not a bunker. A city. Spheres of reinforced titanium sunk beneath the trench shelf, interconnected by transit tunnels powered by geothermal vents. She mapped herself. Oxygen farms, food cultivators, desalination units, medical bays. Her work spanned years. She slept in supply modules. She ate recycled protein. She breathed recycled air. Her skin cracked from salt. Her muscles wasted from gravity belts. But her mind sharpened, because every day she watched the reports from above, rising tides. Collapsing economies, storms that defied meteorology, islands vanished, coastlines redrawn, refugees filled cities already failing, and no one stopped it, because no one believed, except her. And every day, her city grew, waiting. Collapse came quietly. There were no grand announcements, no emergency broadcasts, only silence. Satellites fell, supply chains broke, power grids died. Evelyn Mare watched from her command deck as entire continents flickered dark on her maps. The surface world was ending. Her predictions had been wrong. Not about the collapse, about its speed. She had thought there would be years. There were weeks. Her city wasn't finished, her food stores incomplete, her systems untested. She had no choice. She sent the signal, a frequency buried in ocean static. The message was simple. Safe harbor, coordinates attached. She didn't expect anyone to hear, but they did. First, a single ship, then two, then dozens. Damaged vessels limping toward her coordinates, overcrowded rafts, cargo barges turned refugee carriers. Evelyn opened the outer locks. Her city flooded not with water, with people, thousands, from nations she thought already drowned, from cities that no longer existed. She watched them disembark, hollow-eyed, starving, but alive. Her city was no longer a secret. It was their last hope. The arrival broke Sealam's silence. Children wandered her hydroponic corridors. Mothers rationed water. Engineers she once rivaled now waited for her orders. Soldiers, once protectors of fallen nations, now guarded airlocks as if they were altars. Evelyn didn't speak to them. She calculated. Every oxygen cycle, every calorie, every cubic meter of living space. Her city wasn't ready for 10,000. But 10,000 were here. She assigned sleeping zones to cargo holds, turned storage bays into makeshift hospitals, activated unfinished spheres, accepting their risks. The survivors feared her, but they obeyed, because outside her steel walls waited the ocean and death. Yet safety was an illusion. Her sensors detected the inevitable, not storms, not collapse. Floodlines rising, glaciers gone, sea levels weren't climbing, they were surging. Surface lands would vanish within months, entire continents submerged. And those outside her city? They wouldn't knock, they would invade, they would take. Evelyn watched her screens, eyes hollow, as her equations confirmed what her nightmares already knew. Her walls wouldn't hold. Her city, the last refuge, was now a target, and the world was coming for her. The first attack came from the surface. A warship once belonging to a dead nation, now flown by no flag, arrived on her sonar. Weapons activated. Hull breach attempts began. They didn't seek refuge, they sought control. Evelyn responded without hesitation. Defense spheres activated. Underwater drones, silent and unseen, launched from her city's lower shafts. The warship sank in silence. No warnings, no negotiation, no mercy. The survivors within Selim watched her differently after that, not as a savior, as a commander, as the architect of their last hope. Her authority solidified, but fear remained, because they understood what Evelyn already knew. That was only the first wave. There would be more. Ships, submarines, weapons scavenged from the drowned world, desperate hands seeking refuge or conquest. Evelyn expanded her defenses, floodgates reinforced, tunnels sealed, internal zones reconfigured. Every non-essential system was sacrificed to energy reserves, but energy wouldn't save them. Numbers wouldn't save them. Hope wouldn't save them. Evelyn Mare had built Selim to withstand the ocean, not humanity, and now she had to do both. They came in waves, not just warships, submarines from fallen fleets, converted freighters loaded with mercenaries, raft cities overflowing with desperate survivors, too large to sink without mass graves. Evelyn's city stood in silence as the ocean roared with the last screams of the surface. Her defense drones fought tirelessly. Her outer corridors cracked, her reactors strained. Selim wasn't built for siege, and Evelyn wasn't built for surrender. She adapted. She flooded her lower tunnels, sacrificing sectors to block breaches. She evacuated entire spheres, sealing them as traps. Every corridor became a bottleneck, every door a weapon. She automated turrets she swore never to build. She rationed oxygen between zones, cutting off those who disobeyed her orders. She burned her city, piece by piece, to protect its core. And then, she waited. Because Calum could not win. It could only outlast. Inside the central sphere, surrounded by sleeping refugees, Evelyn stood alone in the command nexus. Eyes fixed, heart silent, calculating. Every breath she heard within her city was her responsibility, and every second she bought them was her sacrifice. But even her equations showed only one outcome. Her walls would fall. At midnight, Selim's final defenses failed. The outer hull, designed to resist ocean pressures, split along the western flank. Floodgates shrieked under strain before snapping like brittle bones. The city that had resisted collapse after collapse was breached. In the central command sphere, Evelyn Mare watched it unfold. She didn't scream, she didn't run. Her hands worked. Thousands depended on seconds. Within her command deck, red lights pulsed like heartbeats. Every diagram, every system schematic, every survival projection collapsed in real time. Her calculations no longer ended in survival. The sphere of silence was unfinished, but it was all that remained. She overrode safeguards. Hydroponic farms darkened. Desalination units died. Entire sectors shut down. Every joule redirected. Her voice, calm yet lifeless, echoed across the city's intercom. Core sphere open. Proceed to designated refuge immediately. Panic surged. Families clutched children. Soldiers abandoned defensive posts. Scientists who once dismissed her bolted for the lower levels. They ran not because they believed in her. They ran because their choice was ocean or orders. Evelyn never left her console. The sphere would only survive if her hands bought it time. And so, as the outer city drowned, she waited and worked alone. Water breached residential zones first. Corridors flooded, airlocks jammed, oxygen tanks ruptured. She rerouted flows, sacrificed entire blocks to protect deeper sectors. Sphere sensors reported only numbers, 7,482 lives inside. Not enough. Her algorithms projected capacity for 12,000. That calculation wasn't hope, it was guilt. Every empty slot in the sphere was a life lost. Yet more ships arrived, more broken rafts collided with Selim's outer gates. Refugees still came. Evelyn denied entry. She had to. Allowing more meant killing those inside. Each time she pressed the rejection key, her knuckles bled. But she pressed it. Again. 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 Above her, floodwaters tore through structural ribs. She vented hallways to create vacuum seals. She electrified corridors to fry boarding invaders. She flooded transit lines to slow hull breaches. Each move bought minutes. Each minute meant the sphere survived. But every calculation ended the same way. Failure. Unless she acted. Unless she entered the flood herself. She donned the only remaining pressure suit. It wasn't designed for this, but neither was she. Steel corridors were rivers now. Her descent was a nightmare. Water clawed at her body, pressure threatening to crush her lungs. Her vision blurred. Only the faint emergency lights guided her. At shaft 47B, she pried open the manual control housing. Her gloved hands shook from cold, from exhaustion. She felt none of it. Her mind ran on instinct, memories, procedures. At console node 9, she accessed coolant valves. She forced them open. Cold, Denser water surged, slowing the collapse. Buoyancy shifted. She staggered deeper. At substation Delta, her last task awaited. Manually trigger the outer reactor floodgate. Collapse the outermost reactor. Flood it. Cut off power to everything, except the sphere. When she reached the terminal, it was already underwater. She had to dive. Her suit wouldn't hold. She dove anyway. Fingers fumbled against corroded keys. Her last thought wasn't of survival. It was of balance, of equations, of the sphere. She triggered the flood. The darkness consumed her. Inside the sphere of silence, time died. The survivors huddled in silent chambers. No lights, no warmth, only the steady hum of oxygen cycles. Children cried until they couldn't. Mothers rocked them without sound. Soldiers sat beside scientists, leaders beside laborers. No one spoke, not because they were told, because hope had ended. In the blackness, they remembered Evelyn Mare, the woman they had exiled, the engineer they had ridiculed, the architect they had cursed, and now in the tomb she built, they waited for her, but she never came. Days passed, weeks. Inside, people learned to live in silence. Rations failed, they ate less. Oxygen thin, they breathed slower. Hope flickered. Yet still, the sphere held, because of her. Because of the woman who sealed herself outside to save them. It was Sheriff Dallin who first heard the signal, a distant vibration through the hull. At first he thought it was hallucination. Then others heard it, knocking. Not from inside, from outside. The sphere trembled. Rescue, from above, from the surface, from what remained of the world. No one cheered. Their voices were gone, but eyes shone. When the sphere cracked open, pale floodlights blinded them. Emergency crews in suits, hands pulling them free, one by one. Children first, then mothers, then the broken, the half-dead, the nearly forgotten. Outside, the ocean was quiet. The storm had ended, and in its place, silence. They asked for Evelyn. The crew said nothing, because they knew she was gone. The sphere was her body, her final refuge, her final act, her grave. Years passed. Sealand was never rebuilt. It wasn't needed. Those rescued from the sphere spread, rebuilt, remembered. But not with statues, not with monuments. They told stories. To children, to survivors, to anyone who listened. Of the woman who sank into the ocean, who built a city for people who hated her, and saved them all. When asked her name, they spoke it carefully, softly. Evelyn Mare, the woman who saved the world from above and from below.